Welcome to the Black Kitchen Podcast, a mini-series made to celebrate the winding, vibrant history of Black food culture in the U.S. My name is Adrian Miller. I'm a culinary historian, food writer, and soul food scholar, and I'll be your host. Let's get into it. The history of Black people and seafood runs deep. As freed and enslaved coastal workers, as long-running community and family food traditions, and as shantymen. And the story of Forsyth Seafood Market and Café in Winston-Salem, North Carolina wraps all of that up. The stories, the history, the family traditions into one establishment, preserving and uncovering these legacies with every fish fried. Here's my interview with mother-daughter duo, Ms. Virginia Hardistein and Ashley Hardesty Armstrong. So, Virginia and Ashley of Forsyth Seafood Market and Café, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. So, first question's for Virginia. Could you tell me where you grew up?
Well, I grew up on the coast of North Carolina. Was there until I went off to college at North Carolina A&T. It's about 5 hours from where we are right now. Grew up on a coastal situation. I mean, my fondest memories are, us picnicking and doing things. Crabbing, did it in a way with a string. We put a fish head on it, throw it out in the water, and just bring it back home. And I can remember all the festivities around trying to get it in the pot.
Virginia, what is your earliest cooking memory?
My mom was a great cook. So, everything centered around food for the most part. I don't know what my earliest one is. It's probably relatives coming from out of town. And then, she would really put on a seafood feast when people would come, and she'd pull out all the stops and we'd have everything, fish, shrimp and oysters and whatever you can name it. But memory just family coming and appreciating the freshness of seafood on the coast. And, it was just a regular thing for us. But for them, it was a big deal.
Hey, Ashley, can you tell me a little bit about your family's deep history in kind of seafood industry, like being fishermen, crabbing, that kind of thing? Can you give us a sense of your family's history and connection to this?
Yeah, so my dad's dad was a commercial fisherman. I didn't know too much about him. And then my mom's dad, he was a commercial fisherman. And I guess he was retired when I was maybe like 8. So in my childhood, I remember him being around a lot. I think I remember all the stories in the pictures and all of his employees and coworkers with them just telling stories about being on the sea and fishing. And he would be gone for like months at a time. And my mom would always tell me how, he would come home and they would have like a big meal around him coming home. But I remember my parents grew up in Beaufort, Morehead City, North Carolina. So we used to go to the different museums and we would go to the dock and see what boat he worked on. My mom's dad worked with Duke University, marine biology. So that was really cool. And then to see some of my other cousins be interested in working marine life was really cool too.
Okay. On your free time, did you ever go fishing just as for fun?
No, I've been fishing once in my life. Actually, the first time I went fishing was on my aunt and uncle's dock.
Did you catch anything that first time you went fishing?
I think I did. I think I was a little grossed out by the bait and the worms and things. But yeah, and trying not to put a hook in my eye. But yeah, I was 8.
Okay. And what about you, Virginia? Did you like fishing on your free time?
It's so funny because, like I mentioned, the crabbing. I remember more of crabbing than fishing. A lot of our customers now in the restaurant, for the crabs that we sell, a lot of them are from Maryland and New York and New Jersey, where they eat a lot of crabs. But about 75% of the crabs that are sold in Maryland come from North Carolina. So I chuckle when people say, well, I like Maryland crabs better. I'm saying, yeah, you're probably eating crabs from down my home.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Okay. What is a shanty man?
Well, at the coast, a long history of men going out. And it was really Manhattan kind of fish that they would go out on the boats. And at that time, they didn't have mechanization. They had men that would pull in these nets. And as they pulled the nets in, they would sing these songs. and spirituals and would chant, so they would get in the rhythm, they would lighten up the load, give them something to do. So it's a very historic kind of thing now. There have been a lot of documentaries done about it. The older men, years back went to Carnegie Hall and did a reenactment of the shantyman songs and the things that they would do as they pulled in the nets. So that's way back. That's in, my grandfather's time and probably my father's early times. And it's actually said, he was a commercial fisherman and then later went on to work on the ship for Duke University and went all over the world.
Tell me about the journey to opening this restaurant.
Well, it's interesting. When you're from a fishing town, your parents' aspirations are for you to go to college and to go get a corporate job and, to do those things beyond what they did. And I did that. I was executive in corporate America. My husband was also from Beaufort. So some kind of way we got this business bug that we wanted to own a business. And people think you're crazy when you want to give up your security. But we kept looking. One night we said, we're going to decide tonight. We're going to stop running around. And so we said, we know seafood. People are always asking us to bring seafood back. So go with what you know. And it served us well. I can remember my late husband, when he quit his job and we bought the first fish market, we didn't even tell people for a month that he had quit his job. Because, as African-Americans, that's what you aspire to. You went to college, both went to college, and you go on, you get these jobs, and you do well, and you get your retirement, and, you go along with the plan, but we kind of rocked the boat. But it was interesting to see that all of our parents were very proud that we had ventured out. We've been very blessed and able to be successful and sustained for 37 years. And it's just an interesting plot. And to have Ashley to come into the business after, she has 2 degrees and to continue that legacy is really very important because a lot of times businesses, they grow and then their children don't go into it and the business dies. So I appreciate her and the new twist on things that she brings.
Can you tell us a little bit about your late husband, his name, how you two met?
His name is Charlie Leroy Hardistein. I called him Charles, so it was the reverse of people having nicknames. He was a star football player in college. We were childhood sweethearts, only boyfriend I ever had. And we grew up together, but he had I guess because he was a quarterback and a leader, he took challenges on. He was very soft-spoken unless you made him mad. But he was always, I guess we were the perfect team because he would come up with the ideas and say, yeah, we need to do this. And go write the business plan and talk to the bank. So he would launch out and then I would put the plan together for it and it always worked to our advantage. And so he loved helping people. We have a street next to our restaurant named Hardesty Lane. And that's to, acknowledge all that he did. I have people that come up all the time now and says, your husband helped get my son in college. He called some people or he did something or he went out of his way. And just people, they just continue to tell me these stories and stuff. So he was a different kind of spirit.
Sounds like he had a profound legacy, though. Touched so many lives.
Oh, yeah.
So, Ashley, I guess you sound like a little bit of an underachiever, having 2 degrees and everything like that. So, why don't you tell us about your connection to the restaurant and kind of your journey to be involved with Forsyth?
Yeah, so I obviously grew up in the restaurant. When I was younger, I did not want anything to do with seafood. I did not eat fish. I think the closest thing I would eat when my parents would host parties would be crab, like the blue crabs and cocktail shrimp. So I wanted nothing to do with the restaurant. When I went to college, I went to North Carolina State University for fashion and textile management and product development. So I learned a lot about like fiber science and textile technology and coloring and dyeing, lots of science, lots of math. After school, I worked for a seamless knitting production company in Charlotte. It was about an hour and a half away from here. And it was really cool because I met a lot of like amazing people, made crazy connections all over the world. And that was cool. Did that for 6 months. I decided I did not want to do that. I came home after 6 months and I told my mom, okay, I need a job and I don't want to do that. And then my mom was like, okay, I'll hire you. So from there, I just used some of my skills from my degree and I helped expand our social media presence and some of our other physical print and press things. And then, what was that? Maybe 4 years later, I said, okay, I do like cooking. I do like being around fish. Let me perfect the craft. So I decided to go to culinary school, and that was at Johnson & Wales University in Charlotte. So I was commuting back and forth there, and after that, one thing that really helped open my eyes was during a seminar. We had a James Beard Award nominated chef come to speak to our class. And after the class, I said, hey, I need a stage. And a stage is French for a free internship. I was like, hey, I need a stage to graduate. I'm 28 years old. My parents have a restaurant. I don't know if you even care about that, but I love your work and I see what you're doing out here. I would love to work under you. And he was like, yeah, send me an email. So I commuted an hour and a half for another year, back and forth, learned so much, got to be a part of some cool production and press things they did with Bon Appetit and some other companies. And yeah, I came back to the restaurant and I was like, we can do this. We can expand this. We can blow it up. And that's kind of where I've been ever since. We launched a food truck last year, maybe 4 months before COVID shut down. Introduced a lot of online platforms with online ordering. We never had that. We talked about it for years. We literally were able to launch it a week before shutdown. We had no idea, the COVID shutdown was going to happen. So that was cool. So it's kind of my journey where I am now, just, refining our company and looking to expand.
That's cool. That's cool. So Virginia, you kind of talked about this, but just tell me about what Ashley brought to the restaurant with the tech, social media, her ideas. Just tell me how that really invigorated your restaurant.
And I think that in COVID, it's been highlighted even more as we saw a lot of businesses go out of business, people who have been in business for 40 years or more going out of business. And when they kind of gave their exit side of it, a lot of them talked about not changing and not evolving. And the pivot word is very overworked, but it is very true. If we had not pivoted, if we had not changed, if we had not adapted to what customers' expectations were, and the world is very different right now, and hopefully it will never be like this again. But Ashley brings a lot of, my idea of advertising was, ads and that kind of thing. And now in this world, it's social media, you can do so many things. And she'll put up a crab video and have thousands of people respond. It's kind of just a different world. But I think, as a business partner, it's perfect timing for now in this world that we're in, that she brings all those skills to, our business, and that she'll be carrying it forward in the future. So.
So this is a question for both of you. What is a typical day like at your restaurant?
Every day is different, We have a home-based system. This morning, one of the employees is saying, oh, I can't be there the weekend, or I can't do this. And we know we've got Black Lux coming up the weekend, and our food truck's going to be out with people. And so you're trying to always balance people's lives and the restaurant. So a typical day is, making sure everybody's in place, making sure the suppliers are bringing what they're supposed to bring, meeting the trucks. Because we're a two-part. We're half a fresh market, which is raw fish on ice. So we have trucks bringing that. Then the other half is a restaurant, in normally 100 seats, and all the people and equipment and that goes along with that. So it's always a balancing act. The first question you do as people are arriving is everybody here today? And then you look and see how you fill the gaps. And the gap may be you. If the cashier is down or something's happening in a child's school or whatever, you may have to stand in the gap. And I think that's one of the misconceptions of people when they say, oh, you own your business. You don't work hard. You don't have to be there. And the fine analysis is you are the one that's there. When nobody else wants to come, you're there. You're doing what needs to happen. And when the customer comes in, they don't want to know about who didn't come to work. They want to get what they want to get. And you got to be there with a smile on your face and trying to deliver.
Fridays are like that too. Fridays are like that times 10. Because Friday in the seafood industry is known as Fish Friday. So, traditionally, especially in Black households, we eat fish on Fridays. So there's usually a line out the door in our fresh market and in the restaurant. So it's like all day from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. We're there full throttle.
Now, I'm just curious. Do you all serve your fried fish with spaghetti, a side of spaghetti? Do you all do that? Have you ever heard of that?
We don't play that.
I heard that's a Chicago thing.
Mine was in Chicago for years. That's what he says. He says, you got to do spaghetti. And he's marketing. So he had us do an event one time and we did fish and spaghetti, but it was very unnatural for people in this area. Just why do you have fish and spaghetti together? So I hear it's a thing, but it's not a Southern thing.
Gotcha. Now, in places across the country, you can, when they have like a fresh market, sometimes they'll let you, they call it you buy, we fry. So do you do that? Can somebody pick out fresh fish on one side in the restaurant and get it fried on the other side?
You can pick it out and we can, fix it how you like, cut it how you like, cook it how you like. And that's a growing industry right now. People want something different, especially if they got to take it back to the house, so we do that part of it.
Okay. So tell me about your customers. Do you have any kind of stories that come to mind or some favorite customers? I'm just wondering how, what your restaurant means to your customers.
We get the full range. I say we get the judge to the street person and all in between. And, in a small business, we've had a lot of challenges. There's always something. We just got out of federal court with our food stamp program, EBT, because of us co-locating restaurant, and even though it's totally separate. So we spent about 2 years in court with them. So it's always something. And when we were regrouping one time, we're open and building, and people are walking across planks to get to our business, parking down the street because our parking lot is gone. So we have the best customers in the world that have stuck with us. And we always said, the current location is primarily African-American community. And we always said our community deserves as good as anybody, And I remember one of the fights I had with the Department of Transportation. They were saying, well, why don't you just take the money and go home? And we said, no. He said, why would you invest? Because we invested heavily in a community that's just starting to show, redevelopment. So we've always been committed to our community because our customers are great, and they come in, you see their children grow up, you see their children go to college. And he said, that was that child that used to come in here with you and they're in college or they're married? Because we've been around 37 years. We regret that during COVID, one of my customers, she kept her mother in a home till she was 107 and passed about 3 years ago. And she was 86, and she passed of COVID. So I miss her coming in. I look for her and all the smiles and prayers and all of that. So we've lost some people during this process, but it was also encouraging that we, have been able to persevere and push forward. And we love our customers, and so we try to do right by them.
Can you go back a little bit and tell me more about the EBT issue? Because you're trying to help your community. So could you explain why that's controversial? I can't imagine why that is.
Well, we're in a food desert where we are. And being in that, and being in the African-American community, EBT for the families and the elderly and all that is very important. Food stamps was the traditional name. And because we're in a building that you go through one door and go one way, you go to the restaurant, you come in the building, you go the other way, you go to the market. Independent auditor came in and says, oh, this is all one. And they came up with a new law where if 50% of the sales in your building are from the restaurant side, then you can't have EBT. And so we're having to do some restructure things and do some things, but we've been in court. But, it's been amazing because we've had conservative senators. We've had Dr. William Barber, who's come and tried to support us. We've had a lot of people, and just people who have come to our aid just because we're in the community, we're trying to do the right thing. We felt that EBT is critical for our community to help subsidize those who don't have income sufficient enough to do what they need to do. So, it seems like it never comes easy. It seems like we're always having to fight.
Nice. Okay. So, Ashley, growing up in the restaurant and now working in it, can you just talk to me about how maybe the menu has changed? Are you seeing customer tastes changing? Are people asking for more grilled and baked stuff rather than fried? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, growing up there, everything was pretty much our menu is pretty standard. It's always the same dinners and different things. And so as I've come in, I've kind of changed some of the size because we are in a food desert. It has kind of been my duty to make sure that we do get things on the menu that are, whole and, sustainably raised and local. So a lot of like the vegetable sides and everything. Things that have changed. Popularity with fish. I feel like sometimes people don't really know there are tons of fish, different species of fish that you can eat, not just your typical red snapper and flounder and salmon, because a lot of those things can get overfished. I did see a lot, maybe the past 2 years, people are now ordering catfish. And there's always been, this idea that catfish is, like a bottom dwelling fish and they eat, terribly at the bottom of the sea. But our catfish comes from a sustainably farm-raised farm in North Carolina. So, there's no grain or anything with that. And let's see what else. A lot of people have been kind of moving towards the broiled items on our menu. And that's one of the things that I feel like has been my calling with the restaurant of introduction of, widening the palate in our community and, kind of breaking some of those stigmas with you can still eat well, but then, you can still taste good. So, yeah.
Okay. So if this is for both of you, what would you say are the most popular items on your menu?
I would say our oysters are really good because they are fresh oysters. So we do a oyster burger and we do a shrimp burger. So that's an Eastern North Carolina thing. There's a really popular drive-in in Morehead City that offers like a shrimp burger. And too many people don't know about that here. So probably the shrimp burger is just fried shrimp, popcorn shrimp on a bun, served with our Eastern North Carolina slaw. So probably the shrimp burger, oyster burger, the slaw in general. We go through, I think, roughly 5 to 600 pounds of cabbage a week that we shred by hand to make our sweet, creamy coleslaw. So that's probably one of the popular items. People come and buy them by the pans and by the quart container for their cookouts for hot dogs and hamburgers. What else do you think?
Well, I mean, traditionally, bonefish, you got to have bonefish because some people just want the fish with the bone in it. Now, the younger kids, they like fillets. But we have a bone croaker that's very popular on the restaurant side, and that's our number one seller in the fish market.
All right. Now, you just dropped a turn on us, and you just please explain bonefish again. Is that just a way of saying bone-in fish? Or what is bonefish?
Yeah, bone-in fish.
Okay.
Where you're not filleting and taking the bone out. And it's so funny, when we opened the second restaurant, our demographic was different. So a lot of our white customers, you could hear them saying, they've got this new thing called bonefish. And we're thinking like, no, this is an old thing. This is original. I mean, I didn't know you cut the head off a fish when I grew up. We always left the head on the fish. And of course, that's too much for here. Some people like it that way, but it's just a traditional way of people eating fish. They didn't fillet it. I didn't know a flounder was filleted until I moved up here after college. But the bonefish is very traditional for especially coastal people.
And it's really interesting to have the dialogue with customers that come in the fresh market and they say, okay, I want a fish without the bone in it. And it's like, well, all of these fish on this line are whole. They're either flat or round, and we can cut them to order. It's like, well, does that have a bone in it? It does. We can cut it out. So it's really interesting to like continuously educate people.
Let's talk about Black people in the seafood industry. Seems like there's not a lot of us in the seafood industry. Do you have some thoughts about why that is?
Well, I think that a lot of the ships and boats have traditionally been owned by whites. People had little skiffs. But then when you came into the dock, you still had to sell to a white-owned business. So it's kind of been a sacred cow. Industry hard to get into, had to have capital to get into it, and then to have a source. Because fish is not like a lot of things. Fish doesn't wait. When you bring it in, you've got to have somewhere for it to go. But if someone you bring it into and they says, oh, you've been doing this, you've been selling to that person, let me block you, they can, virtually put you out of business. So it's a different kind of industry. It's funny. So it's been, kind of a protected area and hard for us to get into.
So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to get into the restaurant business today? This is for both of you. Yeah.
Well, it's a very tough industry. It takes a lot of time. I know that for my husband and I, we missed a lot of events because we were working, or either one would go and the other wouldn't go. I look at pictures and I see I'm there or he's there, but both of us may not be there because we were, at the work. So I think you have to know what you're getting into. I think the thing that will sustain you if your product is very good, and our seafood is very good. I think it's the best you've ever tasted, is what we say. But I think you've got to have something that's a little different niche. That's a competitive advantage.
I would say the same thing. I would add to that your reputation precedes you. So, sometimes people will necessarily do business with you based off of like your morals and your personality. How you treat people is very important. That's really big for us at the restaurant, and the way that my mom and I do business and how my dad did business. You treat people well, and that, like I said, that determines if people want to do business with you. It definitely does take a lot of your time, and just making sure that you prioritize, finding the work balance is what I'm actually learning now.
You talked about, Ashley, overfishing a little bit. Can you talk about issues of sustainability and climate change, how you see it maybe affecting your business in the next few years?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to speak more to the fresh market side because that's where all of that is sourced from. But snapper, we see that going up in price. We see definitely now there's a huge trend with crab legs. I did not grow up eating crab legs. I don't know where this came from, especially in the South. We have seen lots of customers that are willing to pay for crab legs. I think last year 2 years ago, crab legs were $10.99 a pound. Today, they are $28.99 a pound. And people pay for it. Sometimes people come in and they get 30-pound boxes of crab legs. They buy them relatively, like a normal day, maybe 2 to 3 pounds per customer. So,
and that's not all margin, The margin is not very big on those.
Yeah.
So you hold your head sometimes because it's just like prices are runaway. I know that with the COVID situation, they haven't talked about inflation, but we are seeing it. The simple things like gloves tripling in price and bags tripling in price and fish off the map.
Do you have a real price-sensitive customer base?
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah. Down to the dollar, yes.
Yeah. Now, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but what's next for each of you? I think you have plans to grow the business, but I'm just curious, what's next?
Well, we're always looking, trying to figure out the next location. We have customers that come throughout the state. Greensboro is a metropolitan area close to here, and a lot of people come over from there. So just trying to figure out where to plant the next one. Original plan was to at least have 5. We've been talking about maybe franchising as an approach. So always thinking forward.
So multiple locations, anything else? You have the food truck.
Food truck. We look forward to being able to fully staff that. Like the rest of the world, we've been very short on staff. So it means we've been working extra hard, but I think as some of the unemployment benefits are reduced, which I guess happened the weekend here for our state and federal, that people will start to come back to work. And, it doesn't bother me that the worker has had some advantage during this time, because a lot of times the worker comes up short. So, make hay while you can. But it has caused us to be very short and thinking forward, to being able to expand, to be able to do anything until we have enough labor available.
Okay.
I was going to add to that. I had some plans. I would love to see other levels of service come out of the Forsyth Seafood umbrella. So some fine dining, some farm to table, some, conventional walk-up locations, and doing more pop-ups. I started a farm-to-table dinner pop-up company 6 years ago, and I have not been able to do anything since COVID in 2020. My last dinner was January 2020, and that was a dinner attributing Martin Luther King and all of his all the foods that he might have eaten during like a civil rights tour in the South. So doing more of those, collaborating with more chefs of color, and yeah.
That sounds exciting. So Virginia and Ashley of Forsyth Seafood Market and Café, so wonderful to talk to you today. Thank you so much. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure.
All right, I think that's a wrap.
That didn't hurt.
That was my talk with Virginia and Ashley of Forsyth Seafood Market. Unfortunately for all of us, fried fish doesn't ship well. But you can support the market and restaurant online by picking up some merchandise at forsythseafood.com. That's Forsyth, spelled Forsyth. You can also find them on social media at Forsyth Seafood WS on Instagram and Facebook. That's all from me. Stay hungry. I'm the Soul Food Scholar, and I'm out. This podcast has been brought to you by Heinz, the Lee Initiative, and Southern Restaurants for Racial Justice. You just heard from one of the more than 60 restaurants in our 2021 Black-owned restaurant cohort. To learn more about this partnership, visit theblackkitcheninitiative.com.